What if the most painful thing you ever did was also the healthiest? Because if you've ever cut off a family member or thought about it, you already know the guilt doesn't wait until nighttime. It follows you into grocery stores, birthday parties, quiet Tuesday afternoons, and it whispers the same question over and over. Did I make a terrible mistake? If that's you, I want you to stay with me for the next few minutes. Because what I'm about to share isn't about taking sides. It's not about demonizing your family or making you feel righteous for walking away. It's about understanding why some people reach a point where distance, even permanent distance, becomes the only way they can survive. And here's what nobody tells you. The people who cut off family are rarely cold. They're rarely cruel. In most cases, they're the ones who felt things the deepest, who tried the longest, who hoped the hardest. They didn't go no contact because they stopped loving their family. They went no contact because they loved themselves for maybe the first time, just enough to stop. And that is not something you should be ashamed of. Now, I want to be clear, I'm not here to tell you what the right decision is for your family. That's not my place, and honestly, it's not anyone's place but yours. But what I can do is show you what psychology and neuroscience actually say about estrangement, because most of what the world tells us about it is wrong. Researchers like Dr. Carl Pillemer at Cornell, who surveyed over 1,300 estranged Americans, found something that surprised even him. In the majority of cases, the person who initiated the estrangement described it as an act of self-preservation, not revenge. And a 2015 study published in the Journal of Marriage and Family found that adult children who estranged from a parent reported significantly lower anxiety and higher self-esteem over time. Not more guilt, not more regret, but relief. The culture tells us family is everything, and maybe it is. But what the research is quietly telling us is that not all family is the same. To understand why people cut off family, we have to start with something called attachment theory, developed by British psychiatrist John Bowlby in the 1960s and expanded ever since. Here's the simple version. From the moment we're born, our brains are wired to attach to our caregivers. We need them not just for food and shelter, but for emotional regulation, for learning what love feels like, for building our sense of self-worth. When that attachment is healthy, when a parent is good enough, the child grows up with a secure base. They feel safe in relationships. They trust themselves. They can handle conflict without falling apart. But when that attachment is disrupted through emotional neglect, chronic criticism, manipulation, or abuse, the child's nervous system adapts. It learns, love is unpredictable. I must earn it. I am not safe. And here's the part that breaks people's hearts when they finally understand it. That pattern doesn't stay in childhood. It follows you into every relationship you ever have, romantic partners, friendships, your own children, until you do the work to interrupt it. Let me tell you about a woman I'll call Sarah. Sarah was 34, successful, kind, couldn't understand why she kept choosing emotionally unavailable partners, couldn't understand why she apologized constantly even when she'd done nothing wrong. In therapy, she started tracing it back. Her mother had been loving some days warm, funny, the person Sarah adored, but other days triggered by stress, alcohol, or nothing at all she was cutting. Dismissive. You're too sensitive. I don't know why you're crying. Stop being so dramatic. Sarah never knew which mother she was going to get, so she spent her entire childhood on high alert, scanning for emotional danger, shrinking herself to avoid conflict, performing happiness to keep the peace. At 34, after years of therapy and one final explosion at Christmas, she made a decision. She stopped calling. Her family called her selfish. Her cousins called her cold. But Sarah's therapist said something she never forgot. You didn't cut off your mother. You cut the cord that was keeping you from breathing. Here's the reframe I want to offer you today, and I want you to really sit with this. Estrangement is not failure. It's not cruelty, and it's not giving up. In many cases, estrangement is what happens when someone finally decides that the relationship as it currently exists is more harmful than the pain of its absence. Think about it this way. If a friend treated you the way some family members treat their own children, the dismissiveness, the manipulation, the gaslighting, the conditional love, would anyone tell you to keep that friendship? Would anyone say, but they're your friend, you owe them. No, they tell you to walk away. The only reason we apply different logic to family is because we were taught to, because culture, religion, and biology all conspire to make us feel like blood creates obligation. But here's what nobody says out loud. Obligation without safety is not love. It's a trap. And recognizing you're in a trap and choosing to step out of it, that's not weakness. That's one of the hardest, bravest things a human being can do. I want to give you a simple framework for understanding why people reach the point of cutting off family. I call it the 3 thresholds. And once you see it, you'll recognize it everywhere. Threshold 1, the hoping phase. This is where most people spend years, sometimes decades. They keep engaging. They bring up the pain. They try to have the conversation. They hope that if they explain it clearly enough, the other person will finally get it, finally change, finally apologize. Most people in this phase aren't thinking about cutting anyone off. They're thinking, how do I fix this? Threshold 2, the grieving phase. At some point, after enough failed conversations, enough hurt, enough evidence, something shifts. The person stops hoping for change and starts grieving the relationship they wish they'd had. This is the most painful threshold, because you're not grieving a death. You're grieving a living person who could choose to be different and won't. This is where most people get stuck. The grief feels like failure, but it's actually the beginning of clarity. Threshold 3, the distance decision. After the grief comes a quiet moment of reckoning. The person asks themselves, what does continued contact cost me in my mental health, my relationships, my sense of self? When that cost becomes unsustainable, the estrangement decision is made. Not in anger, not in revenge, but in exhaustion. And in the small, terrifying hope that life might be lighter without it. Most people who cut off family have crossed all 3 thresholds many times over before they make that final call. They're not impulsive, they're not selfish, they're just finally done. Now I know what some of you are thinking, because I've heard these objections before. But what about forgiveness? Aren't you supposed to forgive your family? Yes. And here's something important. Forgiveness does not require proximity. You can forgive someone, truly release the anger, the resentment, the need for an apology, and still choose not to have them in your life. Forgiveness is about freeing yourself. It's not a contract that obligates contact. But what if I regret it when they die? This is the fear that keeps so many people frozen, and it's real. I won't pretend it isn't. But here's the other side of that fear that nobody talks about. What if you stay and the relationship continues to damage you, and you spend years resenting both them and yourself? Grief is unavoidable either way. The question is, what kind of grief can you live with? What if I'm the problem and I just can't see it? This question, the fact that you're even asking it, is actually one of the strongest signs that you're not. Truly toxic people rarely question whether they're the toxic one. Your self-reflection is evidence of your emotional health, not your guilt. And finally, what will people think? They'll think what they'll think. Some will judge, some will misunderstand, some will come around when they see you heal. But you cannot make a decision this important based on the opinion of people who haven't lived inside your experience. If this video has touched something in you, if you recognized yourself somewhere in what I described, I want to leave you with one gentle invitation. Not advice, not a prescription, just a question to sit with. Am I in this relationship out of love or out of fear of what leaving would mean? That question alone can be the beginning of something profound. If you want to go deeper, I've put together a free reflection guide linked in the description with prompts that help you map your own threshold experience. No email required. Just download it and use it. And if this video helped you feel less alone, if it names something you've been carrying for years, please leave a comment below. Not for the algorithm, but because other people are going to find this video in moments of real pain, and your words might be the thing that helps them breathe. You don't have to share your whole story. Even just, I needed this today, that matters more than you know. Whoever you are, whatever you've decided or are still deciding, I want you to know something. The fact that this is hard for you, that's proof of your humanity. The fact that you're still asking questions, that's proof of your growth. And the fact that you watched this far, that tells me you're someone who takes their healing seriously. That's not nothing. That's everything. Take care of yourself this week. I'll see you in the next one.